I've honestly grabbed spoonfuls out of the container and just enjoyed it because that's how good it is. Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. For I would probably say the past month or so, I have been raving on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok about my tofu bacon bits recipe, which is 10 out of 10. Okay, it is so delicious. I've been using these tofu bacon bits on just about everything from sandwiches to wraps to pasta, you name it. I have found a way to use up these tofu bacon bits. And throughout this video, I show you all the ingredients you'll need to make this. I share different substitutions in case you're not a fan of certain ingredients. And then I also share different cooking tips to help you along the way so that you can create your perfect batch of tofu bacon bits. And I know without a doubt, I'm gonna see this in the comment section. It's tofu girl, why are you calling it tofu bacon bits? For two reasons. One, because these are bacon inspired crispy tofu bits. So tofu bacon bits. And two, because as Auntie Tab taught me, that's my business, okay? But you can call these whatever you want to call them. Just make them because they are so good. I just find myself snacking on them. I've honestly grabbed spoonfuls out of the container and just enjoyed it because that's how good it is. Let's go ahead and get into how I made these delicious tofu bacon bits. And before we get started, I want to go through everything that we're going to use in order to make the tofu bacon bits. So first up, we are going to use tofu. Now this can be a soy-based tofu or a soy-free tofu. I've done it with super firm tofu, and I've also made this with a fava bean tofu. Both are very firm. They don't require much pressing. All you really need to do when using either one is just to drain it and gently press it. So if you are soy intolerant, there is definitely an option that you can use. In this video, I'm actually going to be making mine with some fava bean tofu, which is soy free. Now for the marinade, it does require a handful of ingredients, but they are all very, very easy to find, and more than likely you can find them at your local grocery store. So the first ingredient that we'll be using is soy sauce. This is going to add that salty taste that you typically get from bacon. We're also using vegan W sauce, and I'm saying W sauce because I gave the effort of pronouncing Worcestershire sauce to the Lord, okay? I gave it to him, so I'm just gonna keep it simple for myself, and we're calling it vegan W sauce. But this is gonna add a nice umami and tangy flavor to our marinade. We're also going in with a little bit of liquid smoke that will add a nice smoky flavor to our tofu bacon, and also using tomato paste in the marinade. And because the marinade does contain quite a few ingredients that may be salty to taste, and then we also have the tomato paste, which is a bit acidic, we're gonna balance it out with maple syrup, which is gonna add a slight sweetness that works really well in the marinade. Last but not least, we have our seasonings and spices. So we're gonna add some nutritional yeast, which is gonna add like a nutty cheese-like flavor to the marinade. I know you're probably like, why would I add an ingredient that has a cheese-like flavor? It works, trust me on this. We're also going to add some smoked paprika, garlic powder, as well as onion powder. Now those are all the ingredients that we're going to use. Now as far as the actual equipment that you're going to need for this, you're going to need a baking sheet, you're going to need a mixing bowl for our marinade, as well as a bag, or I mean you could also use a bowl, but I'm using a bag to help marinate the tofu, which is a critical step in making the tofu bacon bits. And then last but not least, you're either going to use a knife or you can use a vegetable peeler. I would recommend using a knife. I found that the vegetable peeler just slices the tofu entirely too thin for my liking. I know it works for some people, so if you want to give it a try, feel free to do so, but I always just use a knife. And now we get to the fun part. We're about to make the marinade and prep the tofu. All right, now we're going to put the marinade together. I'm going in with soy sauce, the vegan W sauce, the liquid smoke, the tomato paste, the maple syrup, the nutritional yeast, as well as the seasonings. Only other thing we have to add in here is water, and that's gonna help to thin out the marinade. And now we whisk. Now that the marinade is done, it is time to prep the tofu. And as mentioned, I just prefer to thinly slice the tofu. Feel free to use a vegetable peeler if you find that that's easier. But for me, I think the vegetable peeler or a vegetable slicer, I just feel like it makes it entirely too thin. So we're just gonna thinly slice this. And they don't have to be perfectly sliced because we are going to break these apart. So just get it as thin as you possibly can. And I know you might be tempted to just cut these into cubes. Try to avoid doing that. If you truly want to make tofu bacon bits, cutting it into cubes won't allow the tofu to get as crispy as we want it and need it to be for the tofu bacon bits. Right now we're gonna combine the tofu with the marinade and break these apart into bacon bit inspired sizes. So just adding the tofu into this bag, which is a reusable bag. I'll have this one linked in the description because I have gotten some questions on where I get my bags from. So I'll link these in the description. Now we have the marinade that we're gonna add in here. All right, close the bag up. Now we're just gonna break the tofu bacon bits apart into small pieces. Some may be larger than others and that's okay. We're just gonna let this marinate for a minimum of 30 minutes. I would say give it a max of about an hour or so. You could try overnight. I have not let this marinate overnight before, so you might be trying it at your own risk. I've always just done 30 minutes and it's worked like a charm. And while the tofu bacon bits are marinating, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up and go ahead and make a list of the other videos of mine that you plan to watch. I have so many more what I eat in a day videos, solo recipe videos, meal prep videos that I am certain will help you on your journey. So our tofu is all done marinating. And then I have a baking sheet that I generously oiled. And now we're just gonna add the tofu to the baking sheet and then just spread it out like this. We really want a single layer, however that might be hard to get, so just do the best that you can to spread the tofu out completely across the baking sheet. I'm planning to bake my tofu bacon bits in batches, so I just saved some right here for the second round, but we're about to pop this in the oven. We have our oven preheating on 400 degrees and cook it for about 30 to 40 minutes. I would just recommend keeping a close eye on the tofu bacon bits because everybody's oven honestly varies. And then halfway through, we're gonna flip them. Okay, those are in the oven. One thing that I did want to mention that I forgot to mention earlier is that if you purchase the super firm or fava bean tofu. Again, I've only tried it with those two, so I'm not necessarily sure how like a pumpkin seed tofu or a chickpea tofu or lentil tofu will work for this recipe. But if you buy either of those, you do not need to freeze it. In most of my recipes, I do like to freeze my tofu and then let it thaw out because it just helps with the crispiness of the tofu. However, I found that you don't have to freeze and then thaw out the tofu for this recipe. If you want to try it, by all means do so. It won't hurt, but it's just not a required step in order to make this. Taking it out the oven, this is what it looks like right now. Not the most interesting, but it's gonna be okay, I promise. You can see some of the color starting to develop over there. So after you flip them over, just spread them out again over the baking sheet because these are gonna go back into the oven for another 15 minutes. And one other thing I wanna mention, I have found that the darker the baking sheet is, the quicker it'll cook. So just keep that in mind. And again, as I mentioned, 30 to 40 minutes, but keep a close eye on it because they can cook fast depending on the oven and the baking sheet you're using. And once they're done in the oven, they should look like this. They should be crispy. And if you give it a taste test, you'll see that they are also delicious. So that is how easy it is to make these tofu bacon bits. And as I showed you, I've been using them on just about everything. And I know you're probably gonna ask, how do I store this? How long does it keep for? I typically just store mine in an airtight container. I'll have a link in the description if you wanna check it out. But I just store them in this container and they keep in the fridge for about 5 days. But honestly, I don't even know if they'll last in your fridge that long because I haven't been able to even keep them in the fridge for that long because I eat them right on up. And as far as reheating them, I would recommend using either the oven, the air fryer. You could also enjoy them cold. I have found that if you put them in the microwave, they do tend to soften, so just be mindful of that, but they still taste really good. You can't go wrong either way. And I mean, honestly, it just depends on what type of mood you're in. So that's how I make the tofu bacon bits that I've been adding to everything. You can find the full recipe linked in the description, as well as other resources such as more videos from me that I think you would be interested in, more tofu recipes, as well as links to my cookware. I truly hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you enjoyed this recipe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.